story is one about loss, place, and what kind of communities we want to build in our cities. It is about a mobile home park that represented a community, a refuge, and years of hard work for many people who felt invisible, even though they were part of what made the city of Flagstaff, Arizona great. The Arrowhead Mobile Home Park, with home to 50 families, all in socioeconomically disadvantaged, minorities, undocumented, and working in the service industry. It is the engine for the economy of Flagstaff. They received an eviction notice from Landmark, a student housing developer, before Thanksgiving 2017 and had been completely evicted before Christmas of the following year. They lost their homes, their community, and the property they represented years of hard work and bulk of their financial wealth. This eviction is a microcosm of broader issues in Flagstaff and broader issues around gentrification in the entire country. Universities have a powerful role to play, and as educators, we have an incredibly important role to play as advocates for the right to stay. Flagstaff is a small, idyllic mountain town in northern Arizona, located an hour away from the Grand Canyon, 3 hours away from Las Vegas, and an hour away from Phoenix. The city depends on tourism and students. For tourism, they get 5 million annual visitors coming through, headed towards the Grand Canyon, and who come to hike, mountain bike, and spend time in this amazing forest and amazing natural beauty. The students come to Northern Arizona University, a large public university, 30,000 undergraduates, whose student body makes up half of the entire city's population. And you depend on out-of-state students, especially students from California, who are used to a much higher cost of living. Students, together with tourists, have been raising prices of everything in Flagstaff and making things harder for locals. Flagstaff is surrounded by different nature reserves and has some of the most beautiful trails and hiking areas in the country. For locals, living in Flagstaff is known as poverty with a view due to the high cost of living, housing, restaurants, and food catered towards students and out-of-state students. Together with the incredibly low wages of locals, the people who work power the local economy to make everything go smoothly. Housing has become one of the biggest issues in the city, as it has become increasingly unaffordable and unattainable for locals. Rising tourism prices, rising student housing prices have led to nothing less than a housing crisis in Flagstaff. It should not be housing burden, which means that you are paying more than a third of your income in housing. A resident would need to be making $90,000 a year, which is twice the median income in the city. Housing prices are increasing at a rate of 50% above the national average. Student housing is a large part of that increase. Student housing introduces higher prices, takes over land for locals, and at the same time is also receiving generous tax breaks from the city to build. The Standard, which displaced Arrowhead Mobile Home Park, received a $10 million tax break to build their housing. These numbers sound incredibly dire, but displacement is a stark and realist consequence of rising housing prices. It doesn't become any clearer than when a luxury student housing development throws away people which are vital to the city's continued success and makes it impossible for them to continue to live in the city that they call their home. Arrowhead residents had the land from under their homes taken away. Literally, they owned their mobile homes, not the land in which they stood. Most of the mobile homes were too old or couldn't be licensed to be moved. The residents lost their biggest investment as well as their home, where they broke bread with their families, where they had birthday parties, where they were able to build a refuge and were able to be part of their community. Every single one of the residents were displaced. All of them lost large amounts of wealth, and many had to move away from Flagstaff, some immigrants even choosing to return to Mexico. Those who stayed now face hour-long commutes or even longer, far away smaller towns, and many ended up in deep financial debt due to losing their homes. The effects of them being displaced affect them every single day and will continue to affect them for years to come and will even affect future generations. The people who were displaced in Arrowhead were the people who made Flagstaff's economy work. They were kind of like that invisible workforce which is necessary for everything to move forward. They cooked the food at a fancy restaurant, they cleaned the rooms at the fancy hotels, and they were the facility workers and all those invisible people who made the university be able to exist and be able to thrive. There were also people who had families, connections, volunteered in their community. Losing them is a gigantic blow to the city's democracy. The voice of people who are already vulnerable is being made less important. They're being pushed away, being pushed out of sight, they're also being silenced. And the saddest thing is that the city is Flagstaff, the people of Flagstaff, everybody in this town tried to find a way to be able to help these people, but there was no democratic way to be able to keep the people from Arrowhead inside of Flagstaff. There was no way for the land that they lived on to be reduced to anything more than a commodity. This part of the organizers listened to displacement as participant observation during my master's thesis, which included the residents, students from the university, faculty from the university, representatives from the city, including the mayor, and widespread media attention on the issue. Ultimately, there was no legal recourse for the residents. Even with all of the support, there was no way for the city, the people of the city, people who lived in Flagstaff, to democratically choose another use for the mobile home other than what created profit. Flagstaff is changing as many cities. People are given the choice that their cities can gentrify or become obsolete. The locals of Flagstaff are facing the choice that their city can either be tourist and non-state student playground or no longer be relevant. The economy will no longer function. It is a kind of progress that is leaving others out, and one which doesn't involve those who live in the community. It is an undemocratic process of change. It also affects the people who are in the university. It affects the students who are coming to NIU, who this university is meant to serve. This is why, in this story, despite the fact that I really want to showcase the stories of every single person who got displaced from Arrowhead, I also really want to focus on gentrification, displacement, rising housing prices, and reducing the land that we live on, the cities that we live on, to a commodity affects every single person and only benefits developers. Following are pictures of the Standard, which opened in fall of 2019. At the time, the Standard had rents which were 1.5 times higher than comparable residences in Flagstaff. It introduced a new high school to the market and led to rising housing prices all around in the entire housing market of Flagstaff. The amenities you're about to see are amazing, and I kind of wonder how many of the students know what happened to build the apartments. How many understand that the pools and the gyms, everything that they had, costs growing out families. The same family that might prepare their food when it goes to a restaurant, or the same father that might clean the room of the hotel when their parents come to visit. Also, do they know that much of their student debt will go to pay for this luxury housing? Studies say that a third to up to half of student debt goes to pay for student housing. For the affluent, it might make no difference, but for many, it will be years of paying debt. And even if parents are paying it, that is still capital and generational wealth that isn't being passed on from generation to generation. It all comes down to the transfer of wealth from Flagstaff citizens, university students, and municipal governments in the way of tax breaks into profits for a private developer. Private developers are taking our public wealth, displacing people from their homes, choosing the way and the forms our cities are going to take, which is going to be the form of a commodity and not giving us the choice. And they're aggregating the wealth of all of us. gentrification and displacement is happening on a global scale. Much of it is connected to the needs of students, so much so that it even has its own name in the literature, studentification. If we want to live in vibrant, diverse, and democratic communities, we need to make space for everyone. Gentrification affects everyone, from the people who are displaced, to students who pay higher prices, to the families who lose on generational wealth. As educators and those working in higher education, our universities and we have a debt to the communities that house our campuses. Stopping displacement and recognizing the role in it is a step to use the power of universities to create cities that serve everyone. People should have the right to say, and people should have the right to democratically choose what their cities are worth. And they can be worth